Hey guys, it's your YouTuber Thanos Zeus here, and today I'm gonna show you how I build my engines in the way I do them. So when it comes to engines, most YouTubers would decide just to like slap on an air manifold, fuel manifold, exhaust manifold, cylinder, crankshaft, and then call it good. But I build my engines in a different way and kind of intricately as well. So, considering that I want to extract as much as I humanly can out of these engines. So, I guess to start out with an example, I'm gonna make a V6. All right, because like this is what I use in my Formula One engines. So I do this. I'll get a cylinder. I'll, I'll I'm also using mods, but only really to like for paintable modular engine parts. So we have this V6, right? So I'm just gonna say this is the clutch right here, and then this is gonna be the belt. So most YouTubers would just slap a like air manifold, fuel manifold, and like just make sure to connect. If there's a bank, some certain engine banks, then like they'll just make sure to connect the cylinders together through one thing. But that's not me. I like to use as much of these ports as possible when it comes to building these engines. So let's start with laying out the basic manifold, the basic layout. So this is going directly off of my Formula One engine design. So first, I'm going to start with air manifolds. I'm going to place them like this. So, because this is going for a forced induction setup. So then right here, I'm going to color code them so you don't get confused. So these blue ones are your air intake manifolds, and the yellow ones are your fuel. And then as for the connecting manifolds, this is strictly for Formula One car in case you're confused already. So so I'm just gonna build it up and around like this. So this is the basic structure of the engine, and then let's not forget coolant manifolds. There's another specific way I like to do this. So I'm gonna connect up a pipe right here, or that's run pipe right here, and then right here I'm gonna hook up an impeller pump. So then this will go into coolant manifold right here. So this will be the cold side coolant manifold, and then the hot side will be over there. And then I'm gonna start laying out the pipes, and like I'm gonna put the radiator like right out here in front of the engine. So getting to work on that. Let's see, where's my normal pipes? There they are. So for most parts, I'm gonna keep it like this, then go like this, and then this will go here. And considering that this is my Formula One engine design, I'll get to more casual designs later in the video, but this is like purely made for power. And I'm talking some mad power for just 6 cylinders. And like it's a super high-end scream as well. So I'm going to get a fluid tank. I'm going to get a fluid tank small. So this is actually going to help with coolant capacity. So this is your coolant expansion tank right here. So all cars in real life have a coolant expansion tank for like when the coolant gets hot, it expands, and then other shit like that. So then I'm gonna put on the accessories like the starter. I'm gonna get the starter, which is just gonna be I'm just gonna color like that. Then the alternator, I'm just gonna color it like this. Just so like nobody gets confused or anything. Alright, so we actually already have the coolant system completed, and I'm gonna say it looks pretty good for right now. Although if I change around a few things, like move the tank over here, for example, I'm improving my own design already, and move it over here. They'll actually be better for optimizing more accessories. Like if you want a second starter for quicker startup, then you can definitely do that. Like that's the thing about this design. It's pretty compact, but there is also still some room to work around with. So make sure to change this to fresh water, and then label that the cooling expansion tank. And now I can fit the extra starter. I like to use the paintable ones just to like, I like to use paintable modular engine parts. So yeah, so now we basically about covered every input and output this engine will ever need. So now this is how I build my engines. So with a quick explanation why I do two air manifolds to one fuel manifold is because of optimizing power, especially like at higher revolutions, like high-end scream kind of thing. Because of course the higher you rev the engine, the more fuel volume you put through the engine to make that power respectively. And then like with two air manifolds versus one fuel manifold on any engine, you optimize more of that fuel flow if it's power that you're looking for. If it's just efficiency, you can just do like the 1-to-1 ratio of air manifolds to fuel manifolds. But considering this is power focused, this is strictly going to be a power dependent setup. So these I would say these are already taken care of. Don't really need to do more here. But here on the sides though, I'm gonna spice it up with some forced induction. So I'm gonna give myself one of these guys and a pipe angle. So I'm gonna turn on my mirror mode because this isn't a single turbo, it's twin turbocharge. So it's with it, if you're trying to save space, turbochargers in Stormworks are the better way to go. I like to use fluid pressure sensors because like you always want a sense of like how much power you're producing. It's trust me, it's very useful. So then I'm gonna take this impeller pump and place it like so that the intake faces the front. Then I get a filter. You don't really need you don't need an air scoop, especially if it's forced induction. Then I do motor. Then I do electric motor for these turbochargers right here. So now we got the aspiration taken care of. As for fuel, I like to stuff it up on top of the engine. My engine kind of makes like a cube of sorts, so I think the most amount of fuel tanks I was able to fit in like this this cubic area made up from like, even like including the radiator. It's very like interesting design, and it's kind I just love designing these engines, like especially when it comes to like I like the engine, I like the challenge that comes along with it. So I could fit 7 in right here, or actually make that 8, although you have to route some pipes on the outside. So this is like an all-in-one setup. So like you got your fuel cells, you got amongst other things. I'm gonna actually turn these tanks inward to more or less keep the fuel system nice and central and like kind of in a certain space. My F1 engine design isn't exactly like this, but it's very similar, very similar. So it looks like we need a T-piece corner for that. So yeah, that's what you plug in. That'll do like a hose out like right here or something. This is just like, it doesn't have to go exactly like this, but of course. Then a gas relief valve. It kind of helps not to lose power over time. So yeah. Trying to find, yeah, fluid pouring. Yeah, just something like this for the fuel. So this is our engine. It translated from just 2 banks of 3 cylinders right here into this giant hunk of machinery. But trust me, this is all worth it, because the speed and acceleration on this, from a mix of it being force induction, like the air fuel manifold ratio, the optimized cooling, and the high-end scream simply nature of this engine, is stupendous. So this is our Formula 1 engine right here. So this is I had multiple iterations of different engines, but if we look inside, let's say my Red Bull, this is a V6 turbo hybrid. It's of a very similar design, so we kind of get the similar like fuel cell configuration right here. I could fit in the extra fuel tank, but I also had to consider the amount of space needed for hybrid batteries as well. So if we keep getting deeper into this, you eventually come to find out it's a very similar layout. So like there's the twin turbos right there. You can see with the blue right there. So this is, and this, if we let's put everything back together, let's spawn it in. So and it's the wrong settings. Hold up, I need to change around settings because I'm using a keyboard this time. So yeah, okay. Okay, yeah, so no steering wheel. Sometimes I'll drive this around my steering wheel. Yeah, so I'm barely touching my W. There's not much response like from the lower RPMs, but tap that thing in the mid or the high range, like the power, like the engine becomes super sensitive in the high end power. So and I have no idea what just happened. that's why it's stalled, because the brakes are constantly activating. Yeah, so I tailored all the controls of this F1 car to a steering wheel, and trust me when I say, like, it's very sensitive. Like, you barely touch the steering wheel, and it fucking goes. It then, like, it just goes. Like, you touch the steering wheel, you barely put an input, and this thing gives a mega response to the input. Brakes are still I guess I forgot to count for one thing, but let's just remove the brakes for now. So let's just remove it. Because I use a special chip for brake bias and stuff. So for now, let's just remove it so we can actually get a feel for it. Is this thing broken? Let's just go to the no steering wheel version. Much better. Yeah, so that was a little taste of the monster acceleration that this thing has. So this thing, that was without any help from the hybrid system. I mean, yes, the hybrid system kind of supplies the turbos, but they consume a very minimal amount of power because they have a boost control helping them. So gear 1, but we're not going, but that's because I'm holding down the option pedal. Because it's like for a launch control, kind of. So now, let's max our RPM. Just before I avoided a crash there, we basically edged out at about 180 miles an hour. Truly, this thing has like 184 miles per hour top speed. So let's try that again. That's the kind of setup max power would look like. Like from so little displacement. I made this engine with the purpose of bringing out the maximum it possibly could. So now let's take a look at another vehicle. Let's say my truck. So this one has an inline six. It's also turbocharged. And it kind of uses a similar amount of air manifold to fuel manifold ratio. This time though, it actually has an exhaust turbine that it's supposed to help spool the turbo. It's supposed to spool the turbo totally, but turbocharger mod that's been brought from the Stormworks modding community. It only works on Steam, so hopefully they fix that or something pretty soon. So, but this has the same amount of cylinders, but I wouldn't say it makes as much power because I didn't make it to make power. I made it to be torquey. It's really more of a torquey version of a 6-cylinder. And it's also not as efficient in making power as the V6 because with the more crankshaft blocks you have, the more of like a loss you have trying to make as much power as possible. So instead of like two banks of 3, it's one bank of 6 cylinders. However, even though it is a very long engine, very longitudinal, it kind of makes the rest of the engine simpler to work around. I designed it for this truck, so obviously I've had a lot of room here, so especially in the longitudinal sense. So let's break this down. So I'm going to take out the exhaust. This extra piping I'm deleting right now is the variable waste gauge. So this is the inline 6 really, and it's bare bones right now. So let's break it down further so we actually see the cylinders. So that we just got rid of the exhaust manifold. This is the base engine right here. But if we put all of those components back, it will look like the engine looks pretty beefed up compared to what it would normally be looking like. So basically, so let's take this one out for a test drive. So this one is more for keyboard. It's more meant for like regular everyday gameplay. And I also gave it modded crankshafts to make it sound deeper because it's supposed to be a Cummins technically. And it's also completely manual, so popping a little loose. But this one I would say is more efficient than the Formula 1 engine. It's more fuel efficient. I also give it cruise control, so like it'll be more of a conventional vehicle. So yeah, it's got a pretty simple dashboard. It tells you the amount of the liters of fuel you got. And it's producing about 10-11 pounds of boost. It's working just fine. Got engine temperature, which is not that high right now. Usually the Formula 1 engine would get to about like 80, 90 degrees Celsius. Like you'd be getting to like 80 degrees Celsius. This like gets up to like 50 because like we're not stressing the amount of power that's being made here. So 11 atmospheres is pretty good for a turbocharger. So then this is the manual like trip control. So that you got parking brake, reverse, your gear up, gear down. You got headlights, which are pretty dim at first, but if you push on the brakes, both of those light up. Let's say park in reverse. The middle ones are RGB, so but it gets overridden by the brakes. So yeah, so there's that. So. Like a 3-to-1 final drive ratio. This thing is meant for torque and like maybe pulling a small trailer, but overall this is really meant for like run-of-the-mill gameplay and like being somewhat simple to use, and also meant for like utilities. So let's get out the truck for a second. So there's the engine right there. It's all fun games in there. It's nothing too complicated like the Formula 1 engine. Formula 1 engine, it's designed to be intricate and to be extremely powerful. So like there's a lot of complicated stuff that goes into it. Let's see. So that's more like the simple version of like a 6-cylinder. It's kind of for like a medium, like a good balance in between like power and efficiency. Looking at some other ones, just looking around here because I got a lot of vehicles. Let's go back to this is my version of like a military transport truck. This one is really all for like a huge amount of power, really, like a huge amount of power, but more in the form of a low-end grunt than a high-end speed. So this is kind of like a muscle, like American muscle kind of motor. It's naturally aspirated. It's just got 2 air scoops, but this thing produces a lot of low-end torque, and it can go easily like 120 miles an hour. Like I'll take the gun off of it maybe like to make it more balanced, but that's the kind of power you would want in like a low end grunt. So the engine, there's actually not much to it this time around, because you can actually kind of still see like the base like structure behind it. So it's just a bunch of manifolds kind of like running along it longitudinally. It's nothing too special. Although kind of this way, I didn't really like this design either way, because like it's the 2 banks of cylinders are kind of completely separate, and you kind of it doesn't like really communicate with each other really. So that's the only disdain I have for it. And then the exhaust, like with the catalytic converter, runs out the back. You also have coolant circulating that comes around towards the front, inside the front here, or somewhere in here. Yeah, there's the radiator right there. So yeah, it's simple. It delivers a low-end grunt, which is kind of what's wanted for a military vehicle. It's just stuff like that. So yeah, so then those are the 1x1 engines. So now if we're going to 3x3s, I won't go over too much about 3x3s, but so for 3x3, this is quite a lot of machinery that goes along with it. I mean, all of this stuff is dedicated to the cooling. Like you got like 3 radiators per cylinder, just about, because that's what it takes to keep this engine cool. It spins at like 20 RPS at head end power, or in other words 1200 RPM, even though canonically or in real life this thing's only supposed to spin at like 900 RPM, but I decided to bring it up to 20 just so I can meet my power demands, for my electrical power demands for this locomotive. So this one does have forced induction. It has 2 giant superchargers. It's meant to spin this generator insanely fast enough to produce about 3,800 Stormworks watts of power. It's not much, it's slow revving, but the torque is more than enough. I also have other versions of turbocharged 3x3 engines. Another good example would be my ES44AC locomotive. It's a 3x3 turbocharged inline 6. Oh, that's perfect cutout right there. It's not, you don't see much because it's covered by weight blocks, because I put them there to make the train heavier and get more traction and stuff, which is pretty important for freight locomotives that gets its optimum traction. So a lot more pipe work here because of the nature of this locomotive being long and skinny. I have to direct all the coolant pipes towards the back. You have the radiators almost at the completely very back, and I have one turbocharger instead of two, because I also gave this more of a balance. I've tried to give this more of a balance between efficiency, fuel efficiency, and power. And it's just enough to get a good amount of electricity out of the generator. It's the same one I used in the F40, but speed isn't really a pressing issue in this locomotive like in the F40. So, like, just enough to power the two traction motors out under full power would be good. Then I didn't really delve much into 5x5s, but they can get they can get pretty hard to work on, like, considering, like, there's so many pipes you have to lay or whatever. It just depends on the build of what you're gonna do, but even at this, I still have two air manifolds and one fuel manifold. I stick by that principle very strongly. And actually, let's go back to the military vehicle for this one, because you can see that I have these, like, very long manifolds that, like, cover every cylinder somewhat equally. So, but why do I do this? Do it this way, where, like, make sure every cylinder gets equal amount of air fuel? Well, that's because I've actually had another engine that's kind of this, almost of this exact same design. I've actually taken it and like, ran some tests with it, and turns out that, like, there is such thing as air and fuel distribution between cylinders. So if air and fuel can be delivered evenly between all these cylinders, then you would have the best optimization of air and fuel flow. And then as for things like the Formula 1 engine, it's kind of got similar principles. It has similar principles. I think it's one of my backups. There. So yeah, it's kind of got a similar principle what's going on. Like, all the air and fuel is going to be, like, mixing in these cylinders. So, like, and then once it's all done, it all comes out the back here. And considering I connect both sides with some sort of manifold right here, I made sure that these different banks of cylinders can actually, like, communicate each other and, like, balance out, like, with air and fuel being combusted. And yeah, so, like, that's how I build my engines. And I think it's pretty important that and I also derive this philosophy from, like, real life cars, because they have, like, manifolds, like, on the truck that equalize the airflow between all cylinders. It may seem unnecessary in Stormworks, but it does get you an extra edge in efficiency and power, and it actually makes your engines really good thermally and efficiently. So really, when you look at an engine like this, you might be tempted just, like, a slap on a few manifolds and just, like, say you're done. But really, if you get all of this stuff included along with, like, extra accessories like forced induction, like, you will get some benefits, like like untold benefits that may be very beneficial for what you're looking for in your creations. So I hope you found this video informational, and thank you everybody for watching. Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon if you haven't already. Until next time, F1 is has the fastest cars in the entire world.